In 1324, a king left Africa on a pilgrimage. He brought with him 60,000 people, 500 servants, 100 camels, and so much gold that everywhere he stopped along the way, he spent and gave away so much of it that he collapsed the price of gold across the entire Mediterranean world for the next 12 years. His name was Mansa Musa, and he was the ruler of the Mali Empire, the wealthiest human being who has ever lived. This is his story, and the story of the city that made him. Forget everything you think you know about medieval Africa. While Europe was stumbling through its dark ages, while kings fought over muddy fields and most European cities were little more than walled towns struggling to survive, on the other side of the Sahara Desert, something extraordinary was happening. A civilization was rising that would produce more gold than any other place on Earth. A city was growing that would become the intellectual capital of the entire medieval world. That city was Timbuktu. And the empire that built it, the Mali Empire, was so vast, so wealthy, and so sophisticated that when its emperor traveled to Mecca, he accidentally destabilized the economies of 3 continents. Come, walk through it while the gold still flows. Before Mali, the dominant power in West Africa was the Ghana Empire. But by the 12th century, Ghana had weakened. Rival kingdoms circled. Then came Sundiata Keita. Born into the Keita royal family around 1217, Sundiata spent his early years in exile, driven from his homeland by a conquering king named Sumanguru Kante. According to the griots, Sundiata was born with a physical disability that prevented him from walking as a child. His enemies mocked him. His prospects seemed impossible. But Sundiata rose. He built alliances across the region. He assembled an army from the fragmented kingdoms that had suffered under Sumanguru's rule. And at the Battle of Kirina, around 1235, he defeated Sumanguru's forces. Sundiata won, and from that victory, he built the Mali Empire. He was the Lion King, not a myth, a man. And what he built would endure for nearly 3 centuries. Stand in Timbuktu, and you stand at the meeting point of 2 worlds. To the north stretches the Sahara Desert. To the south flows the Niger River. Timbuktu sits precisely at the point where these 2 worlds meet. It began as a seasonal camp, a meeting point where Tuareg nomads and Mande traders exchanged goods. But under the Mali Empire, it grew into something far greater. By the 14th century, Timbuktu had become a city of extraordinary sophistication. Its population reached 100,000 people, larger than most European cities of the same era. The Sankore Mosque and its attached university was the crown jewel. At its height, Sankore University enrolled 25,000 students, more than the University of Oxford had at the same period. The libraries of Timbuktu held between 400,000 and 700,000 manuscripts. Think about that, 700,000 books in a city that most of the world had never heard of. But no single moment defined the Mali Empire's place in world history more completely than the pilgrimage of Mansa Musa. He inherited an empire already wealthy beyond imagination, but under his rule, Mali reached its absolute zenith. At its peak, the Mali Empire may have produced more than half of the entire world's supply of gold. Half the world's gold from one empire. In 1324, Mansa Musa set out on the Hajj. He did not travel quietly. His caravan stretched for miles across the Sahara. 60,000 men walked ahead of him. 500 personal servants each carried a golden staff. 100 camels each carried 300 pounds of gold dust. When he arrived in Cairo, the spectacle stopped the city. Mansa Musa's entourage spread gold across Cairo like water. He paid for goods with gold dust measured in handfuls. He tipped servants with amounts that would support a family for years. He spent so much gold in Egypt alone that he destabilized the Egyptian economy. Scholars estimate that in today's terms, his single pilgrimage may have caused economic damage equivalent to $1.5 trillion. This was not recklessness. This was the demonstration of a power so vast it could afford to reshape economies as a side effect of simply traveling. When Mansa Musa returned from Mecca, he brought back the architect Abu Ishaq al-Sahili and commissioned him to transform the cities of Mali. The Djinguereber Mosque in Timbuktu, constructed in 1327 under al-Sahili's direction, remains one of the architectural masterpieces of the medieval world. Built from mud brick, timber, and palm wood, the mosque rises from the Saharan earth like a living thing, its towers topped with ostrich eggs, symbolizing fertility and purity. It could hold 2,000 worshippers simultaneously. Books were the most valuable commodity in Timbuktu, worth more than gold by weight.
Let the balance decide its true value.
Scholars copied manuscripts by hand in the city's hundreds of private libraries. Knowledge was power, and Mali had both in abundance. But empires bend, even golden ones. By the late 14th century, the Mali Empire had begun to fracture. Succession disputes weakened the throne. Tributary states began asserting independence. Raiders from the Sahara pressed on northern borders. In 1468, the rising Songhai Empire to the east captured Timbuktu itself, ending Mali's dominance of the Western Sudan forever. The gold routes shifted. The scholars slowly dispersed. The great libraries were hidden, buried, or carried away by families who understood what they held. But they were not destroyed. Today, between 300,000 and 700,000 medieval manuscripts survive, many of them still unread, still untranslated. Scholars are working to preserve and digitize them, a race against time, against humidity, against neglect, against conflict. The knowledge is still there, waiting. Stand in Timbuktu today, and the Djinguereber Mosque still rises from the earth exactly as it did in 1327. Its earthen walls are replastered by hand every year by the community that has maintained it for 7 centuries. The ostrich eggs still crown its towers. The Mali Empire is gone. Its gold is scattered across the world's museums and private collections. Its emperor exists today only in historical records and economic calculations. But Timbuktu endures, and somewhere beneath its streets, in a sealed clay jar or a forgotten chest in an old family home, there are almost certainly manuscripts that nobody living has yet read. Books written by scholars who believed their knowledge would last forever. They were right. Subscribe for more and journey through Africa's past.